Bienvenidos a Taboo Talk Latina Edition. Yo soy Cynthia.
And I'm Jeanette. And today's episode is different. It's tender, it's real, and it's straight from el corazón. We know Mother's Day can bring so many emotions, some sweet, some painful, some still healing. Whether you're a mom missing yours or figuring out your relationship with her, or you're just trying to break cycles, you're not alone.
As Latinas, we carry the weight and wisdom of generations before us. The love, the strength, but also the silence, the unspoken struggles, the sacrifices we never saw, and the pressure to be everything to everyone. But today, we're changing that. We're holding space for the joy and the grief, for the laughter and the guilt, and for the parts of motherhood that no one talks about, but we all feel.
In today's special Dia de las Madres episode, we have two incredible mujeres joining us. Mujeres who are mothers, community leaders, and cycle breakers in their own path. Denise Castro, author of Womb of a Mother and founder of Virtual Mom Collect.
And Natalia Gaitan, founder of Hola Luz Creative Studio, a Latina-led brand strategist and mother reinventing what it means to show up with style. Bienvenida, ladies. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
We're so grateful. Yes. Juntas, we'll be sharing two powerful segments. Carta a Mamá, a love letter to the mothers who raised us or to ourselves as mothers.
No es como me dijeron, breaking the myth we were taught to follow and redefining motherhood on our own terms. So, ladies, let's take a minute and pause before we read our letters. We want to invite you to think about the mother who raised you. Maybe it was your mom, your abuela, your tia, or maybe it was you, the version of you that no one showed up, that no one could show up for.
These cartas, they're not just words. They're things we've carried in silence, lessons we didn't understand until we became mothers ourselves, or healing we're still walking through.
Natalia, whenever you're ready, the mic is yours.
I don't have my Kleenex ready. Hold on. Okay. This is it. This is a letter to myself. One day, the goggles will lift and you'll see this role for what it truly is. Luz. I know right now it feels like a burden and like you're being punished, but be patient. Becoming a mom is what will save you. Guess what? You actually became the person you needed the most. And that is truly all that matters. You get to be light for yourself and you get to be light for the people that you love. And will only and slowly transform into compassion. And that compassion will make you feel lighter, lighter than anything you've ever carried. Just this week, I was scrolling through some of our camera roll pictures, and I found the most beautiful baby pictures of you on the girls when they were babies. And I thought, why don't I remember any of this? And then it hit me. I was so broken back then that dissociating from reality was the only way that I was surviving. I know you're trying to escape the inevitable. You open your mouth and you hear him, you see him, and all the things you hate about him pour out so naturally. It's second nature. You resent how easily it comes and how fate feels like it's being fulfilled. But I promise you, this will not define you. There is light, there is luz, and this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Wow.
Well, all right, Denise, mic is yours.
Wow, I just had to mute myself because I had like a little sob that was really beautiful, Natalia.
Yes. Can't wait to touch on you.
So I'm going to pull up something that so I haven't written in a year and I want to share that. And I put a little post in my story before I get into the poem. And I felt like after I published my book, like, what else do I have to say? Like, I don't think I'm kind of like in that chapter where I don't know what else to say. And it just hit me the other day that I was like, why am I not writing? What is the fear? And it's because writing is a mirror, right? It brings essentially all the things that we sometimes put on the back burner and don't address. So this is my first poem addressing the writer's block, I guess, if you want to call it. And it's called She Thinks. And she thinks. She thinks no one sees her when she sighs, gazing into the toddler smudge mirror, folding baby clothes into boxes, wiping a tear away with a onesie sleeve. She thinks her son isn't watching as he rediscovers toys untouched for years, or her daughter singing full-hearted to the same song she once adored. She thinks no one notices the ache in her core as her children, once nestled in her womb, now plant their feet on solid ground, claiming space without her. She thinks no one sees her searching for the baby that once was in sleeping faces, in soft outlines only love can trace. She thinks as she rebuilds herself, no one sees the weight of every choice she makes, bartering time, love, and presence. She thinks vulnerability is now her legacy, just wishes she'd known the side of motherhood always lived within her. She thinks of heaven often, and no one sees her heart sink. When asked how many children she has, her answer is grateful, full, and quietly aching. She thinks no one understands the jaded, holy grind, balancing motherhood on an ever-steepening climb. She thinks of the last time her children will ask to be carried like babies and holds her breath, hoping she'll recognize it. She thinks no one sees a gentle tuck of her waistband, the faded tiger stripes on her belly, a map of love, of survival. She is vessel, temple, warrior. She thinks her foundation goes unseen, but like a queen ant, she builds and protects her quiet, mighty empire. She thinks Mother's Day is every day, not a date, not a post, not a brunch, but the pulse of her very being. She thinks no one sees her, but I do.
Ladies, you touch on powerful, powerful key points that I could relate with, and reminders that we are always there for others, but we don't say those kind words to ourselves. Natalia, you mentioned about looking through the pictures and not being fully present. To me, that hit me because I was present with my kids, but because I was so busy with trying to be there for everyone else, I didn't fully get to really enjoy it. Yesterday, I'm looking at pictures. I could relate because I was like, man, I wish I would have really been present, of like focused present, not say I'm a present mom. I get to be with them all day. But what's that if we're not really physically present with them? And there's a difference that we lack with technology in today's world. Mind you, my boys are only 5 and 6, right? So this didn't happen too long ago. And it really hit me because I felt that I was not worthy. I felt like, why can I do this? Why can't I be there for them? And Denise, when you said about the toys, and with your little boy, like I can relate because I have 2 boys and it hits me. Because sometimes it's passing by. And as mothers, we are so used to criticizing ourselves and thinking we're not good enough and constantly like we could be better moms or like comparing ourselves that we miss on being present with them and really recognizing the strength that we've had to even carry them and to go through labor, right? And to get to raise them. That's powerful. So thank you, ladies, for being vulnerable and sharing that. Like I have no words.
Yeah, that was amazing. I have like so much to say, but then I'm like, I don't know how to put it into words.
Just feel it
Oh
off.
my God.
Feel it off.
So much emotions. Wow, that was so powerful. And I just want to know, knowing what you guys know now, what would you tell your mother or your younger self when you first became a mother?
I used to think that, or I used to resent my mom because she made it look so easy. She made it look effortless. She was always there. She didn't complain. I didn't see emotion ever, like good or bad. And I was just so upset because when it was my turn, all I did was feel the bad, feel the good. Like it was just so many big emotions. And now I would tell my mom that I know the burden. I know the burden of pretending not to feel. I have so much compassion for my mom now. Not because I'm a mom and no, like the classic, now that I'm a mom, I see you. But it's more on like the women experience, like the female experience of hold up to everybody else's expectations and put yourself last all the time. So I would just tell her that I know that it's not easy and that it's okay to feel the bad too.
I mean, being a mother has really like changed like the way that we interact with our own mothers, right? So it's like crossing a bridge and deciding what you want to bring across that bridge with you. And I think for me, it was understanding that I was raised parallel with my grandmother, with my abuela. So because she needed that help And I felt this a little bit of resentment when I had my children, because I expected the same idea of like abuela's the village. She should really partake and she should be helping me raise these kids. And that is not something that functioned for me as a mother. And it was something that I needed to let go of and stop feeling that resentment of she couldn't do this for me when she wanted to still continue her career and be abuela and, not retire. And I think having the deep dive conversations are so important, because as uncomfortable as they are, and especially in Latina households, it's it's taboo. Like, you should mal agradecida que yo te crié, you had food on the table, yo te pagué el colegio, etc. And it's that attribution of like whether you're grateful or not, that that's not the way you want to mother your own kids. And I remember having those talks with my mom this past weekend. They put home videos, right, of me when I'm like 6 and I'm just doing all these insane things. Like I'm doing a show. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. I'm still doing the same things, like, salseando, wearing costumes, speaking, all of it. And then, when we moved to Mexico, it was different. Like, my family's not there. There's everybody in the camera. I just loved recording commercials. I mean, it was a commercial about lechuga. I don't even know what I was talking about, but like I was talking about lechuga. And in that moment, my mom's like, Mira, I'm so proud of you. She's like, you used to do all these speeches and you're talking and whatever. And then I looked away from that specific commercial where like I was surrounded by my family in some of them, and then there's some where it's just me and my dog. And my mom's like, well, she's like, you were just so creative. You always had something to say. And I was like, yeah, I needed to look away at one point of that commercial. And she was like, why, what? I go, because I was lonely. I was really lonely. And I'm not blaming you, because I know you were there, but it was a big change for me when I grew up. Filling up the silence and talking about lechuga or whatever it was is what allowed me to just understand that it's okay to cry. It's okay to be the oldest and the strongest. And it's okay to have change. But I'm like a 7-year-old moving different countries is hard. And the way that I was able to cope with that decision that you made for us was by doing commercials so that I can, not focus on such a vast change. And like, she was in the hospital with me on Monday, and she like was so sad. She was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, it's not your fault. I'm just trying to explain that the way that you mothered me sometimes is not the way that I want to mother Anthony and Ava. And you should be okay with that. That's not a direct attack or reflection of the way that you mothered. It's just something that does not serve me. But I'm still proud of you, and I still love you, and you're here, and that means everything to me. And it's a hard work. It's hard work because it's automatically like I failed them. I'm being criticized. I wasn't good enough. I should have done more. And that passes on to us if we don't address it.
Wow, yeah. I love what you said, Denise, because I can relate. When I was growing up, I'm the youngest. My brother's 4 years older. And I was always very creative. I would like line up my dolls and make believe I was like teaching them. And I would always say, like, I want to be a teacher. And that was my thing. And I was always like alone. And my mom would always, and I was like a plus like student through and through. I was like a bookworm, whatever. And my mom would always say, like, like Cynthia's so independent. Like, I don't have to worry about her. Like, she does everything on her own. She plays on her own. And it's funny now that you say that, because thinking back and reflecting on that, it's like, well, I had no other choice but to be dependent, because you were too busy, taking care of my older brother. Like, they have an amazing bond, amazing bond and amazing relationship. And now that I think about it, you kind of like, when you said that, I was like, wow, I had no other choice but to be independent at a very young age. And for me, reading a book and immersing myself in a book was kind of like my escape, right? And being a good student to me till this day, sometimes I always tell her, I'm like, I wanted to be a good student so I can prove something to you. And I never got back, like, "I'm so proud of you, like, you did amazing, like, look at the career you built." I've never heard that from her, and every time I do tell her, she's like, "Oh, but I put a roof over your head, like, you never starved, you never lacked." And I'm like, "Yeah, but that's not the point."
Yeah.
So I love that you say that because it made me reflect and think like, wow, to them, it was like, oh my God, look at Cynthia. She's 4 and so independent. And it's like, well, yeah, I had no other choice but to kind of force myself to be independent.
And it's crazy how motherhood changed the way we see our mothers or how we don't want to be towards our kids. I couldn't agree with you ladies more because we've all been there, right? Like my grandma raised me and my mom was always working and her excuse was that. Not an excuse. I know she was putting the money, like she was putting a roof over our heads, but her thing was like, see, because I had to work, ¿quién más la iba a mantener, right? But like Cynthia said, it's not what we're trying to prove, but it's not also what I'm trying to give to my kids. I want to be better. Like I was raised con chancleta, con cinto,
Yeah.
and whether it's good childhood stuff that we remember, there's also those bad ones that I'm like, but why did you hit me? I could just talk to me, right? But now it's like I remember only doing it once and raising my boys like if I was gonna hit them and their face looking at me scared, like shaking when I would just go at them. And I said never again, because even if we're good women, we're good parts, like we have, moments that we lose it. And that was like my first reaction. And I'm like, why? Because that's all I remember growing up and that's not who I want to be. And then you see all these reels of like los gringos of like, come here, sweetheart. And we're like, no, porque los latinos, oye, ven aquí que te voy a dar. And so you're like, okay, well, I don't want to lose my roots, but I don't want my kids to grow up like that. Like my kids have already learned that when I'm firm or I just give them the look, they're like, okay, mommy, I'm sorry. I love you.
Yeah.
We can change them. Like we can give them a different perspective of like, I don't have to hit you to get what I want. And I also want to build that trust with them that I didn't have with my mom, that I was scared to go to anyone in my family. I want them to feel secure coming to me with whatever they did, knowing that I'm their mom when I have to be their mom, but I'm also their friend, right? Because it's tough growing up in the Hispanic culture, and we can all relate. We've all said something that goes us back to that moment of like, we don't want to be like them, but being firm, like you said, Denise, with how we're going to raise our kids, because that is a huge factor and they want to take control.
Yes.
100%.
I love it. Yes. Now we're going to do a little icebreaker. We're going to do some iconic mom phrases we all grew up hearing because I can't wait to hear what you ladies have to say. So, something my mom would always say that I hated growing up, especially when I was in high school and wanted to hang out with my friends, she would say, Si tu amiga se tira del puente, tú también te va a tirar. And I hated that phrase. And I never had a comeback. So I would just be like, okay, I guess she's right.
I know. And mine was that one plus que tú ibas en este techo. Son mis reglas, like you're under my rules, right? And it would always piss me off because I'm like, I'm just trying to get out. I'll be back by 9. But it was like, no, right? So I'm sure you ladies can relate. Do you have a different one?
For those two for me, but and this is kind of like, she would always use my dad as like the threat.
Yeah.
Like, no, espérate que llegue tu papá o vamos a hablar con tu papá. And to me, like transforming that now to like see my kids excited to have daddy come home, to me, that's just like mind blowing. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. What about
My
you,
mom
Denise?
would just like always say, I'm like, what? I'm like always the same. Like if I wanted, I was like, I'd get home. I'm really excited because so and so got a jacket, and I really want this jacket. She's like, tiene que estar como fulanita que tal. I'm like,
Yes.
that's not true. She's like, it's true.
Yes. And I remember for me in high school, I had like 2 best friends, like really good friends, but my mom never let me go over their house, no sleepover, nothing, because uno nunca sabe, right? And one of my friends, she actually got pregnant during high school. And I it was like, I don't want my mom to find out because as soon as my mom finds out, she's gonna be like, ¿Tú ves? Te lo dije. And as soon as like I think it was like one day for like parent teacher, my mom came and of course she was there with her mom and her belly. She was already like 6, 7 months. So she was really showing. My mom, us leaving, walking out, my mom like taps me and she goes, ¿Tú ves? Te lo dije.
You're like,
I was
let's
like,
really
oh,
do
damn
it.
it.
Mi mamá no me dejaba. She'll be like, tú regresa a la hora que tú quieras, pero you're not going to stay. I'm like, so if I get back at 3 o'clock, it's okay? As long as you make it home. Mom, it's the same thing if I get back at 5 in the morning, which I never did, but it's just like common sense. Like, let me just sleep over. She's like, no, 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 no. Have them sleep over. I'm like, it's not fair. If you don't never let me sleep over, they don't let her sleep over. She's like, ah, bueno.
Yeah, it was like, and to a certain degree, that's something I want to bring. I'm not about the sleepovers either. Now that I'm like,
Yeah, same.
just not about it. Like, and I get it, like the overprotectiveness, and even probably back then where it was like even harder to sort of, there's the internet now. There's just it's easier to find out, what a family or what other parents are like. Back then it was just like point of contact. They seemed pretty normal.
Share
Besides
your
that,
location,
you couldn't
nothing.
really, right, you couldn't
Yeah.
really pinpoint anything else. So like I feel like that mom radar was, yes, overbearing, overprotective, occasionally annoying, but I feel as a recovered helicopter mom, or recovering, 'cause I'm still recovering. Um, it's one of those things where I'm like, my husband's like, why do you have that faith? I'm like, because they didn't join this last parent teacher night that means something, and my son's speaking to this kid, and I need to know what's going on here. My son's just like, you sick? Like what? I'm like, what? For a week? A week?
It's crazy, right? How
You
we are
do this
so
project with you for a week?
advanced than the guys. The guys are like, oh, it's nothing. We're like, what do you mean it's nothing?
Yeah.
Like, what's happening here? I need to know all the little conversations or what's going on here, that even though I can't see what's going on.
100%. And then, of course, there's the myth we grew up hearing, right? Common myth about motherhood that we grew up hearing that today we're like, I can't believe like I even thought of that or thought that was true. So something that my mom would tell me all the time that kind of impacted me in a negative way throughout my motherhood. She would always tell me like, I can't wait for you to have kids so you can see like the sacrifice that I have to do like for you and your brother. So for me, that fear was so instilled that I was like, "Oh God, I don't know I want to become a mother," because she would paint it in such a negative way that to me motherhood was very negative because of that phrase that she would always say. And she would be like, "I can't wait for you to have kids so you can suffer like I'm suffering." And I'm like, "Wait,
Wait,
we're such good kids." So then when I had my first son, I like truly fell in love. Like he was like my everything and still is. So like what you said, Natalia, at the beginning, my mom showed no emotion and she showed a lot of negative emotions and bitterness towards motherhood. So then when I had my first son, it was like the complete opposite. And then I just couldn't comprehend why my mother couldn't feel this same emotion towards motherhood. So that's something that she would always say that really impacted me in a negative way until I had my son. And I was like, oh, wait, no, like this is like, so he's 15 today. And that thought of me telling him, "Oh, I can't wait for you to have kids so you can see like what it is," it would never cross my mind to ever tell him that.
and I feel like we all at some point we were told that or we witnessed that around us because I feel like that's something rooted in the Hispanic culture. Like for me, si eres mamá, tu vida ya no es tuya. Like tu vida va a cambiar. And that happened to us even before I had kids. I was in the entertainment industry, I was in music, I was in fitness, right? And they were like, ay, aprovecha ese cuerpo, aprovecha ya no existe. So I kept thinking, well, I want to be a mom, but am I ready? Like, I want to live my life more, thinking that there was a timeline to have kids because my life is shut down.
Right.
I mean, that's what I saw too. My mom had no friends. She had no social life. She would never do anything for herself just because she wanted. And if she wanted, the rare times she did it, she had to ask for permission. So I feel that so much. I can relate.
It's tough. It is tough. For my mom, it was tough because it was that same idea of like, oh, when you become, when you get married and when you have kids, and imagine what that's going to be like. And I'm like, I don't want those things. In one of my commercials, I'm like, I'll never have kids. Never have, not interested. Motherhood's not for me. So it was like that rebellious attitude of like, my mom's like more of a wallflower. She's always been like, she's been very, very nurturing. But the person I wanted to admit was actually my father, because he was the breadwinner. He was the go-getter. He was the career person. And even though she had a career, she leaned into motherhood so that her career would never be not squandered or in competition with her motherhood. And I thought, my God, why does she let raising me and my brother get in the way of her career? Like, this is probably, from where I'm standing, one of the most critical, most pivotal points of your life, to have, your dream job and build your wealth and travel, etc. And then realizing it, I had it completely wrong when I became a mom. I was like, what the hell am I talking about? Like, life begins with them. Like, my whole axes just went off. I had all of it, and it meant nothing. I had the job, that had bought my apartment, all the other things that I thought equated to success. And it wasn't until I realized, I'm like, this is the beating heart of who I am. And I resisted it for so long because it was just expected of me for me to be like my other family members, get married, young, have kids, produce heirs. And I didn't want to feel like a breeded horse. I hate saying that. And that continues like the legacy of, whatever the family tree has in store. And it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure because I was like, I'm gonna be an old mom, and that it's fine. Like, okay, fine. I'm not gonna do it young. And I feel like there's a part of them that it's not necessarily resentment, but a deep rooted, like, I chose you over this moment in my life, and I could have, been somebody. And I'm here to remind them, our current moms, you've always been somebody. You've always been, we see you, like, you've always been important. Like, in fact, you held everything together for so long in survival mode, that I'm just trying to tell you, you no longer have to do that. You can put, your feet on the ground and think, I did my part, and I just want my kids to know that I love them, whether they want a mother the same way that I do or they don't.
Wow. And that was powerful. And I want to touch on that real quick because it's like, yo no sé, yo tanto que le di a mis hijos, nadie me llama, nadie le importa. And as much as they love me, they're going to have a future. They're going to have dreams and aspirations, and I can't always keep them with me. And my mom now lives with my sister still, right? So she still feels like, my sister still feels like she wants to evolve, but in a way she's forced to stay because then she's the bad daughter because now she's the only one left. And me and my brother did our lives, married, have kids, a career. And my sister's trying to figure it out. And I know a lot of that has to do with my mom holding her back because of the words that she says, right? And that I was like, wow, like it makes me feel okay, I'm not alone and we can help them through this process because they give everything for us. And I agree, whether it was good or bad then, but now they feel empty because they don't have anything going for them.
Yes, I love that. What are some taboos that, now that you're a mother, we know that is not true anymore? Some taboos that you just grew up hearing, whether it was from, your parents or just your family overall, that now you're just like, yeah, no, that's not true.
To me, it's the idea of que la mamá sabe todo. Like your mom knows best. We don't know shit. Like we are figuring it out as we go. And I feel like that does relate with like being a mom now, almost 40. I look at my mom and remember the feeling of thinking, shit, this lady knows her stuff. She knows what she's doing. This makes sense. And now I see it like, oh, she's just trying to do the best that she could with what she had. And I am always very excited to talk to my daughters about it and be like, I don't know, this is the best decision, but this is what aligns with our values, or like, this is what your dad and I think it's best right now, but we're figuring it out. So try to be vulnerable about not knowing all the things. We're not perfect, perfectly imperfect. So yeah, that's a big one for me.
But that's a big
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah, I love that because, thinking back, like growing up, we always thought like, moms, know it all, right? And, that growing up in a Latino household, right? Like, our parents are always hustling, right? They were working and, coming home, cooking, cleaning. And to me, when I would see my mom, I'm like, my mom does it all, right? She's like superwoman. So now that we are mothers, it's like, oh crap, yeah, we don't know it all. We're figuring it out as we go. That's why for me, in my healing journey and my healing relationship with my mother, I'm able to extend so much grace to her now because now I fully understand. She did the best she could with what she had. So, I mean, I can't sit here and be bitter. Yeah, there's a lot of things that she did wrong, but she was just trying her best, right? And I was only able to realize that when I became a mother and I started my healing journey, right?
I know we all
You know
can
what they
relate.
say?
And what about you, Denise? No, no, no.
No, go ahead.
Eh,
Go ahead.
Listen,
Go ahead.
when you talk back to your mom, or in my case to my dad, and they would say, "Porque yo dije," pero porque yo digo, like that's like they have the
I said
final
so.
say because I said so. Like,
yeah.
but that just doesn't work anymore. I mean, for us, it doesn't work that way, and the girls want to know like the actual why. So I think not having the final word is very brave and vulnerable too.
That is because that happened to me recently. I would tell my boys something and I just don't have the why. I just want to tell them why. And then my youngest is like, but why, mommy? I'm like, because of this. Yeah, but why? But why? To the point I'm like, okay, never mind. I take it back. But yeah, they're curious, like, why? So yes, that's such a good point.
Yeah, and if you think about it, right, their developing brain, right? They just want to know, right? They're developing their brain. So that's one way for them to kind of start learning, right? And being in this world. So the why is just them learning. And to think back of when we were young and being raised, that we would just get shut down, right? And we would, I mean, I personally wouldn't answer back. Like as soon as my mom would say, porque yo dije. I would never say, but why? Because I knew that slap was coming. And now that I have my own kids and, there's more resource, right? So we know more of like their developing brain. It's like, well, they have to know, right? They want to explore, so that's one of the questions they ask to get to know.
I feel that because for me, like a taboo that I didn't really think about until later. It's never too late to parent your parents. I never thought that I'm literally parenting my parents at the same time as parenting my kids. And honestly, I did it the way I started was through writing. And I remember my mom being really receptive to when she read a specific chapter here, and I didn't put it though. There's a chapter, it's called A Letter to the Daughter of an Immigrant, which is about my great grandmother. My great grandmother unfortunately died giving birth to my grandmother, the one that raised me. So she had a uteral hemorrhage. And in Cuba, it was, very difficult in El Campo to find the medical assistance that she needed to address the bleeding. So she departed in this world on the day that my grandmother was born. And I come to find that, my grandmother was raised by a man. My great grandfather was not so brusca en la manera que expresa su amor with her daughters. Te quiero, eres todo, tú eres mi cielo. And I feel that it's up to me to help my mom and parent them together because those wounds, obviously, and that trauma transpired and transferred to my grandmother, who then transferred it to her daughters. I never had a mom. I never got to see her. I'm a living proof of a miracle. You should be grateful that I did the best that I can. And my grandmother was a very strict person. Do not, you do when we go visit people, you don't ask for anything. You sit there in the corner. You make sure that, you're not touching anything, that you don't ask for, specific foods. And then with me, I was like, abuela, ¿me puedes poner tus zapatos? She's like, sí, 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 dale, dale. I was like, in her tacones, and my mom's just like looking at me like, what? ¿Qué pasó aquí? I mean, you were so harsh. And going back to the story, I was like, because I'm piecing it together so you can understand that she was literally raised by a man, and then she was raising children, and she had no mother figure. She had a tia who would come see her every 3 months. Imagine being a woman, or you're becoming a woman about to have your period and have nobody with you to understand what your body may go through. And the form of escape is marrying and see where it takes you so you can have a better opportunity. I'm like, that is some really tough shit right there. Like the whole scope of it, the fact that you guys are like, yes, living, breathing miracles. She did the best that she can with the most limited amount of like on utero. We passed that love, that energy with that being severed within hours that she was born. And that's hard. That's so tough. And I have so much respect and give her so much grace because they didn't celebrate her birthday until she was probably 5 because they thought it was just too much of a sad occasion because her mother passed on the day she was born. And I come to find that later in my life. I'm like, what do you mean you never had a birthday? I mean, Papa, it just breaks my heart. It breaks me into shambles. And I'm like, Mom, she did the best that she could, and she still thinks that you're her pride and joy. Understand that still need to be a parent. You have to parent your own parent the way that I'm parenting you through this, so that you can understand that this for her will live forever inside her. Too late. She's not gonna change, but you can. You can change the way that you approach her, so then I can change the way I approach you.
Yeah, it's a chain. It's a chain. And this is like I go by don't judge this book by its cover. Because, we all have a story and we're easy to judge because of the day to day, the technology, how advanced we are, right? And we assume that everybody has it put together, that, it's okay, shake it off, move on. But when you really dig deeper, like Denise, that you discover, and the reasons why behind it, like people are not the way they are because they were born like that, and that's one thing that I've learned. And it's like they were shaped that way because of how they grew up, because of their culture, because of something. They didn't just decide to be born and be like, I'm going to be bad, or I'm going to hate life, or I'm not going to be a team player, or like, all the stuff that we think about. Moving forward, like one thing that I've learned is just not judge and look at it from a different perspective, just like you did, because that is so much more powerful. And if we can change, at least we can change certain people, we can change the past, but we can change the future, right? And at the best way we can. So, wow.
I love that.
I'm thinking of like your grandma celebrating your birthday and like the healing of that moment just makes me very emotional for her.
Yes.
Yes, big time.
That must have been such a special moment for her, for your family overall to witness that.
There isn't a birthday where she's not front and center. Even when we moved away, she would just come for my birthdays. And I didn't realize that, like, I am, I guess it's not to say that the granddaughter she always wished for, but I think the daughter that she had hoped to mother if
Mm,
she had been in different circumstances.
yes.
Had she been able to find the joy because she, had kids during war, during, communist regime, she lost everything but the clothes on their back and came here with nothing but the clothes on their back. And Jeanette, well, I'm sure his family shares that same story where like she found herself in a strange country, not speaking English and has no idea. So like that survival is still very much, I think, a huge part of the reason she gets up.
After all, she carries that.
¿Dónde está la croqueta? Yo no puedo comer eso. Yo padezco de gastronomic
But they
issues.
still do.
Yes, they still eat it.
No, it's crazy because to me, la gente que hacen bromas and they joke and they're always like smiling and laughing. I know they're the most hurt and they've been through stuff, right? And you look at them and you're like, oh my God, but they're fine. Like, no, it's like they've been through stuff, but that's like the way of just moving forward, like just living the best life they possibly can. But that's beautiful.
Yes. And how do you ladies hold space for yourself now, even when that guilt tries to creep in?
I think that's like a learned skill that, of course, we didn't learn from our moms and our grandmas. And to me, it's sticking to therapy. Like that's my place to feel all the things, but also allowing myself to feel the things in front of my daughters, like full on transparency. Like I'm flustered, I'm overwhelmed, I'm scared, I'm not sure if this is gonna pan out. Like putting it out there, and that to me is taking care of myself because I'm not putting that burden of hiding my feelings. So yeah, I feel like feeling, letting myself feel is my best way to take care of myself.
I love
So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I feel sometimes that, that my kids aren't watching. Like, I just feel like, no one's really watching you. You're always being everything for everybody, and then people aren't watching you or they don't see you. And I have that feeling sometimes. And for me, it's like, so the topic of death, right? Like, it's something kids always about what happens in heaven, what happens when you get old. And my son lately has just been like going through a period where he doesn't want to get older. He wants to stay. He wants to feel in that safe space. It's probably because he sees me reminiscing, right, of the go through the pictures, and sometimes I'm like, oh man, I should have maybe not done that in front of him, but or address the fact that I'm not sad because he's growing. I'm just nostalgic that it's going by so fast. And I remember it was like a month ago, he was like, Mom, I don't want to go to college because then I'm gonna miss you guys too much, and I don't want to leave I don't wanna leave the house, and then, you're gonna get old. I'm like, Poppy, getting old is part of life, like, there's nothing you can do to stop time. It's just a way it's part of life." And he's like, he thinks he's, like, looking up for a little bit, and he's like, "Well, when you die, I will make sure that I bury your body in the back of the house because you're home."
Oh my God.
He's like, "You're home, mom. That's you're home, you're home." And I'm like, and then he fell asleep, right? And I'm like, like, what? Like, what do you mean?
the thing.
And I sobbed so much. I was like, that hit me so hard because I was like, geez, they're always watching. They really are always watching and paying attention. And in their minds, the way that they structure and see you, it's so complex. And I always thought that like maybe not showing I was not shown so much of like the hard things, and when people would cry or there was deaths in the family was like surface level. And I've always thought, geez, I wish I knew a little bit more about this information because then I would understand my trauma response later in my mothering. Like, why don't, like, oh, make sure, he doesn't know about this that's going on, that, so and so super sick so that he's not impacted if they pass away. And I have to completely change that. And that's something that I just had to change as hard as it is, that topic of discussion. And me thinking of him, thinking of me dying, I'm like, I don't know, but it's part of life. It's just what it is. The best thing I can do is just stand by him and stand by myself.
And to see them that little think like that, and how their brains develop and that they are watching. I couldn't agree with you more. Like they're constantly watching everything we do, our surroundings, even when they're not like with us, they're like probably in the living room, you're in the kitchen, they still remember stuff. Cause I'm like, how do you know this happened? He's like, I was right here. And I'm like, you were over there, but it's like they remember. So especially when they talk about dying or stuff like that, you're like, I'm not ready for this conversation.
Right? Yeah.
Like nobody ever gets you ready for that. So
No.
my gosh, ladies. And
No.
as we are getting closer to ending, this has been powerful. And I have one last question for you, ladies. What's one thing you wish someone told you about motherhood?
I feel like
Tricky question.
would have loved to know that I get to do it my own way. Like there's no right way. There's no right way of being a good mom. It means different things to everyone, and just like set your own expectations and not look at everybody else's idea of what like a good mom looks like, especially a Latina, like a good Latina mom, because we're always told like, we're better women because we have a great house, a great husband, we have, well-behaved kids, but the worth of a woman is not in the role of motherhood necessarily, and you just get to be the mom that you want to be. Like it's not written in any books.
Wow. And that's something I know we all can relate with because when I had my boys, I remember my first one, I was going through the list and looking at all the videos and YouTubes and how I can learn to be a better mom. And I'm not a mom. And what if he stops breathing? And what if he falls? And all these things that I thought that I was not ready for, but that no matter how much I read or I educating myself, which were good things. Until it didn't happen, I wasn't fully prepared and I just got the mom instant. But I think, especially now with technology, we compare ourselves with the mom reels, with motherhood, with comparing of how you have 6 kids and you have this full schedule when I only have two and I can't have my life put together, right? It's that comparison that also I think affects motherhood and overall as a women, right? Because we're constantly comparing ourselves. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like this picture perfect image of us being perfect mothers and raising them the right way doesn't exist. There's no right way. And everything for everyone works something different.
Yeah, for me, it's, mother is a verb. That's something I've coined for a long time. It's not only like an action, it's a part of your very fiber. And had I known that when became a mom and lost my first baby, it was a huge culmination of how I would identify as a mother later on, and really fighting the imposter syndrome of like, don't want people to feel inclined to ask me why I feel less than in this moment. So just deconstructing the facade of it all sometimes, where motherhood is sold and packaged as this bright shiny beacon of everything, which it is, but also seeing the other side, which is really hard work. It's deep rooted hard work, and it's okay to show the ugliness of it all and feel that side by side with the joy, the pain, and letting that, sort of interweave itself in the way that you never thought motherhood would be for you. And I was just pleasantly surprised later on and how much I do enjoy being a mom, and how much in a photograph I looked in certain over the years of the pictures I took, and I'm like, I'm depressed there. I just literally had a breakdown of PTSD. I was breaking down in a bathroom, breathing into a bag because I couldn't feel this emotion of like overwhelm in front of anybody else. So I just, slapped on a big smile, and I feel so bad for that person, and I just wish I could give her a hug in that moment and just tell her it's going to be okay, and that having those feelings is perfectly fine.
I love that. Yeah. For me, is that motherhood is going to have its up and downs. There's moments, different seasons, right? There's seasons that are going to be perfect. There's seasons that are going to be messy. And at the end of the day, it's okay. Like all of the different stages of motherhood, it is okay to feel. And there's going to be all these different stages of motherhood. Because like you ladies said, right, we always compare and look at the way someone else is doing it, and you're like, "Oh, man, they look, like, perfect." So I have a blended family, and every time sometimes I get comments like, "Oh my god, how do you do it?" Right? It's 5 kids. Like, it seems like you guys have it all put together. And I'm like, no, 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 do not be deceived. Like, it's a lot of work. And because we are a blended family, we have to deal with the other parent, right? We can't ignore them. They also have an input as well. So, yeah, I would say motherhood has its different seasons, and it's okay at the end of the day to feel and ride the wave of motherhood.
Percent. My gosh, ladies. Wow, what a powerful conversation. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Natalie, for opening your hearts and reminding us that motherhood is not one size fits all. It's layered, it's messy, and it's sacred.
Yes, we laughed, we
Happy Mother's Day
cried.
every day.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we laughed, we cried, and we named what so many of us grew up thinking had to be quiet, right? Pero ser mamá doesn't mean losing yourself. It means learning how to carry your story while also creating a new one.
and if you're listening
Absolutely.
right now, whether you're a mama, a daughter, or someone healing from a mother wound, we want to hear from you. What's a myth you're breaking? What's the lesson motherhood or your relationship with it has taught you?
So slide into our DM and tag us with your carta a mamá, or just leave us a comment. We want to hold space for your story too, porque juntas we heal.
And mamas, give yourself grace today. You're doing better than you think.
And we'll be back with another real, raw, and taboo breaking conversation. But for now, we're sending so much love to all the moms out there, the present, the past, becoming, and healing. You matter. Feliz Dias de las Madres, ladies.
Feliz Dia de las Madres. We see you. We honor you.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.